Hey guys, I'm AJ Goen and I am a paramotor instructor, and I just wanted to do a quick video on my first impressions of this setup. This is a Fly Products Ryder thrust, which is exactly what I fly, but this frame is set up for this particular motor, which is a THOR Polini 202. This is a new motor that Polini just released. It's very similar to the THOR Polini 250, but just 202 cc's. It's just been released, I think a couple of months ago. We got one here for testing. And I'm just going to give you my first impressions of it real quick. So let's talk about pros and cons of this motor. Again, I've only got about 3.5 gallons through it, breaking it in, and most of that time's been spent trying to tune it. This was sent to us as a test motor to use and abuse and see what we think of it. And so far I do like it. It does have more power, but let me go through the list of things. So the pros. First off, it definitely does have more power than the Moster 185. How much? It's hard to say. I haven't thrown it on a stand. All I'm using is my butt fan meter, and it definitely climbs faster than my current setup. Is it 30% more power? That's the claim that I'm hearing, is 30% more. Potentially with the stock Moster and a stock Polini 202, I think it may be 30%, but that's debatable. Where the pros lie are going to be, first off, the throttle. It's a slide carburetor, which is like a typical dirt bike two-stroke engine. It sounds just like a two-stroke dirt bike. I love the way it sounds. But let's get back to the throttle. The throttle is extremely smooth throughout the entire power range. It seems like the power band kicks in around 6,000 RPM-ish, 6,500, but it's not out of control. It feels very smooth and linear all the way through the throttle range, and it's great for foot dragging and being very precise in that throttle range, because typically cruise is going to be around 4,500 to 5,500 RPM, and right through there, man, it is very, very smooth on that throttle. It's also a very light pull on the throttle cable. Let's get to the sound that this motor makes. It's a different type of sound. It's still relatively loud when you're at full RPMs, but it's a different range. It's much more deeper, very throaty. I've heard it described as almost nasally in a good way. When you fire this thing up, it sounds like a two-stroke dirt bike. It's pretty awesome. For the pilot and bystanders, it's better. It's not quite so annoying. You fly around a Moster, especially a Moster with a tri-blade, it's screaming all the time, and it's very high-pitched. It just doesn't sound the same, and in a very annoying way. Especially for some reason, everyone complains about the way mine sounds. But this doesn't seem to get the same amount of complaints, and it does sound better for the pilot. It seems like a different harmonic frequency. So that being said, where this motor may be used is going to be potentially for bigger guys. And what I'm saying by bigger guys is 200 pounds plus. And there's some caveats to that, why you would want to do that. But most people that would buy this motor are going to be 200 plus pounds. Potentially doing like a lightweight tandem setup, like the Flash Cruiser, the Fly Products Flash Cruiser, which this would bolt right onto. That would be a good option for that. That or the 250. The other option would be for guys that may be doing the Foxy trike, the very lightweight trike. Those are the guys that I would recommend this motor to. Tandems, lightweight tandem setups, big guys, or trike guys. That's who I'd recommend this to. Where the power is kind of in the same RPM range as the Moster, but it's just different. The overall thrust is there, but I guess it just doesn't spool up as fast as I'm liking, and that could be a tuning issue. Again, that's going to require more testing. But it just doesn't feel like it spools up as fast or as in the right same way that I'm used to. So maybe it's just going to take me getting used to for aerobatic flying. That being said, I do like it. I like it a lot. I'm a bigger guy. I want more power. I feel like I need that extra power. So the extra thrust is a much welcomed addition. Would I buy this motor? Potentially, after some more testing. I also want to try the THOR 250. I think that may be even a better fit for me. So that leads me up to the cons of this motor. What are the disadvantages? First is probably going to be part support. It may not be there yet. I don't know. I'm going to leave out the tuning thing because we don't know if that's how they're going to come from the factory. This is just a test motor. You are going to need a very specific frame for this motor. You can't just slap this on a frame that you've got laying around. You would need a specific frame that would mount this motor. This is a Fly Products Ryder thrust, just like what I fly, but this is an offset to the opposite direction. It's got a gear reduction, and the gear reduction obviously torques the opposite way. It torques to the left as opposed to the right on the Moster. So it's going to need a very specific frame. So that's kind of a disadvantage. You'd have to buy a whole new setup for the most part. If you've already got a Flash Cruiser or a Foxy Trike, this thing will bolt right on to that, but you will need the actual main frame to be, because the actual shoulder joints where the arms mount are offset the opposite direction. The torque compensation on this frame, it does a really good job of limiting that. However, it still has a lot of torque, and I don't know if that's directly due to the gearbox or the extra power or this big swinging prop, this helix prop that it's spinning, but it definitely torque twists on the climb out. I actually have to weight shift to the right to try and minimize that. And I feel like the Fly Products does a really good job of torque compensation. So that's, take it as you want. It wouldn't limit me from purchasing or flying this motor on a regular basis, but it is there, just so you're aware. Other disadvantages are it's heavy. For me, it's not terrible, but walking around with it for more than 5 minutes it gets exhausting. It starts to add up. How heavy is it? So this exact same setup, my Ryder thrust with power floats, fuel, and reserve, it's going to be 18 to 20 pounds heavier. So when you're already carrying around 72 pounds, that's significant. So, you know, anywhere between 16 to 20 pounds different depending on how much fuel you carry. So 16 to 20 pounds is a significant amount when you're getting into that 90-pound range. That's a lot. Is it worth it? Potentially. The problem here is that this is going to take a longer time to warm up. It's a liquid cooled motor. You need to warm this thing up for 5 minutes before you can actually go out and launch this thing. Whereas a Moster, it's air cooled. It warms up pretty quickly and you can launch within, 2 minutes to 3 minutes potentially. This thing's 5 minutes of walking around with the big motor. Now, if you got a car rack or a way to mount this motor to where you can start it and let it sit there for a little while, it's not as big of a deal for you. So other pros / cons, they're yet to be determined. The reliability. I think being liquid cooled, the reliability is going to be inherently there, but that's yet to be proven. Obviously, we haven't got enough time on it to determine that. The other thing that's yet to be proven is efficiency and the actual thrust numbers, but hopefully we'll get those soon and go from there. But as of right now, I would fly this. I would own one of these. If I was to buy a motor right this second and needed a new one, this is probably the route I would go. But I want to test the THOR 250 because I may go the THOR 250 route. The extra weight may be worth that extra power because, like I said, I do tandems. I do foot launch and trike tandems. That extra power could come a long way for me. For everyday flying, foot launching, I think this is a great setup for me. I want to try some more props and different testing props to see if it spools up faster, if we can get the efficiency better, or even some more extra thrust out of it, because I feel like there's some extra thrust being left on the table, and maybe that's being left there for that efficiency and for that reliability. Again, it's just not been out long enough to know any of those facts. So anyway, that's my first impressions of the Polini THOR 202. I do like it. There are some disadvantages to it, but there are also some heavy pros to it as well. Take it for what it's worth.